Historic Lexicography and Digitization. And those of you who know me know that I'm not exactly the most disciplined person, and I think eStoc is really trying to challenge my strict side with this role. But I'm very, very happy to chair this session because we have 6 wonderful papers. And I don't know if you've had a chance to watch the pre-recorded talks, but if you haven't, I hope you will be inspired to do it after this session because they are really worth your time. Now, I've asked the contributors to prepare short 3-minute statements to remind us of what their paper is about. And I've asked them to try to focus on one main issue or one main contribution or one main challenge that they had to face, even though I know, of course, that, that's totally crazy and reductive, and digitizing historical dictionaries, and both in the sense of, belonging to an earlier stage in the development of language or belonging to an earlier stage in the development of the lexicographic medium itself, clay tablets, print, digital. That is a very complex enterprise if you want to do it right. So this reductive approach will certainly have some of its shortcomings. We'll have the discussion after all the mini presentations. And I would just like to ask you to, when you write your questions, to make sure that you, just to facilitate, mention the author's name, the presenter's name. And I've just pasted the list in the chat, so that will help us to know who the question is for. One thing that connects all these papers, and one thing that will set this panel maybe apart, is that whenever we talk about historical dictionaries, we are confronted with the fact that a dictionary is not just one thing, but many things at once, right? It's a text, it's a model of language, it's a tool, and it's a cultural artifact. And so whether we talk about, a Basque trilingual dictionary, an unfinished Upper Sorbian-Czech dictionary, the dictionary of Old Norse prose, an 18th century monolingual Portuguese dictionary, a dictionary of Buddhist Sanskrit, or a Hanunu English dictionary, I think it becomes very easy and obvious to see how the use of digital technologies can have profound effects on the accessibility and reusability of lexicographic heritage. So we can get the party going, and we'll start with David. David, the screen is yours.
Hello, yeah, thank you, Toma. Do you hear me? Yes. Okay, I will just share my screen. I hope you see it now. Yes, very good. Yeah, okay. The challenge I will concentrate on is, well, actually it's our main challenge. We wanted to get the contents of the Larramendi Trilingual Dictionary from 1745 onto the Wikisource platform, and ultimately also onto Wikidata. We got a grant for that from Wikimedia Basque Country. This is the dictionary, how it looks, and what we had in the beginning, some scanned images. So what we did is we trained this tool, the Kraken tool, for OCR, and got a very nice, very precise TXT version of it, and got it onto Wikisource. This is how it looks on Wikisource. Here you have the scanned image, and here you have the OCR text. So now people can, the Wikisource community can go in here and correct any error. Yeah, the precision is 98.5, so there must be 1 or 2 errors on every page. And what we also did is we got this into a lexifier, so that we were able to extract, able to produce a structured data set, where you now have links to the corresponding point on Wikisource, and also on Wikidata, but I show that later. Well, one challenge was that Kraken produces Alto OCR, which is very nice because Alto OCR also represents the line indent, the text box position here, and also Kraken is able to identify italics as opposed to non-italics. And we wanted to save this, of course, in the wiki text on Wikisource, because this structure layout is this layout feature is very meaningful later. And this is actually possible. The line indent and the italics, we are able to represent them like this. What we also do is we have an anchor here, which is the headword anchor, so that these links actually work, right? You can go here and you end up at the exact place on Wikisource. So if you see an error here, you can jump here and then to the next and just correct the error. So that soon, I hope we will have a 100% precise version of Larramendi. Some attestations we have already uploaded to Wikidata. This is how it looks. Yeah, attested in Larramendi Trilingual Dictionary, attested as, which is the original form, and then there's the link to Wikisource. This is actually the same thing the Danish people do. You can see here some attestations which are represented the same way for Danish. And yeah, I mean, very short, this is it. When we have 100% precise OCR, we will repeat the rest of the process and then get all the content on Wikidata. Thanks.
Perfect. Literally 3 minutes. Well done, David. Thank you very much. Our next speaker would be Michal from the Upper Sorbian-Czech Dictionary.
Yes, yes. Can you hear me, Toma?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Let me share it.
With that, Katja is with us as well. Sorry.
Yes, she's a backup. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you should see my presentation right now.
Yes, right? If you can just make it full screen.
Okay.
Perfect.
Perfect. Right. So to put it really simply, our main goal is to complete the unfinished Upper Sorbian-Czech dictionary. Why we call it posthumous child? Well, we have inherited this project from Jiří Mudra, who passed away in 2009, leaving his lifelong work unfinished. This is how his legacy looks like today. He managed to complete about 2/3 of the whole dictionary, ranging from A to S, so Sniknich, and the rest is up to us, I guess. That is the major contribution of ours to the project. And that's also the main difference comparing to our colleagues' projects in this panel. As regards challenges, we face two major ones. First is to all of us, notoriously known problem with founding, as we have to find an appropriate grant. And besides, we need to deal with the copyrights to Jiří Mudra's work. And we've been negotiating with the heirs of these rights, and I had a rather strange feeling from these. Seems to me that the idea of the dictionary as a tangible book artifact is still too entrenched in lay people, especially the older ones, and the virtual form of the dictionary is difficult to accept for them. And there's a contradiction, because these same people, however, do not use paper dictionaries anymore, and they're too cumbersome for them, these dictionaries, paper dictionaries, and they prefer online resources. So maybe another aspect which plays a role is fear of insufficient acknowledgement of Mudra's lifelong efforts and all of the appropriation of his work and merits, probably. I don't know. So we have to deal with these issues, but we are still at the very beginning of the project, so looking for funding. So that's it.
Thank you very much. I think many of us who have worked on old dictionaries and archived collections of word lists, etc., have encountered this opposition to the transition to the digital, and it's really surprising that you would think by now we would have gotten over it, which is why I always think that our main difficulties are not necessarily technological but social, and that there's still work to be done there. So, yeah, thank you very much. Excellent. So off we go to Tarrin. Tarrin, I didn't see you. Is your screen on?
Yeah, I'm here. You've stopped my video. It says the host has stopped my video.
I didn't do anything. Can you try again?
It still says unable to start video. You can't start your video because the host has stopped it.
Hello, host. Can you help us? Very good.
Okay, great.
Welcome.
I'll see if I can. I have to. Sorry, I have to exit full screen here.
Don't worry, I've carefully built a few minutes of buffer time into our schedule. So.
Oh dear, this is unfortunately the first time I've used this computer, so you have to give me just a second, and I'll allow it to. Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to let me do that. Here we go. Okay, sorry about that. Always a technical problem, even amongst us supposed experts. Okay, so this was a project that I got funding through the Marie Curie Individual Fellowship Scheme to do or at least start a dictionary of the corpus of Old Norse poetry, a kind of supplement to the dictionary I'm now working on. So there's the address if you want to go and have a look at that. This is based on a digital corpus, a fairly small one, 150,000 words, that I have been working on also for many years, which you can also see the address of here. And the key thing that is relevant to this conference is that the corpus involves translating the additions and linking them at the level of the word. So that we have a correspondence between the text and the translation at the lexical level, insofar as that is actually possible. And so there are two challenges here with one solution: how to use this linked translation and how to create a historical dictionary with some 15,000 head words in the course of a two-person year set of funding. So the underlying addition structure means that the text and the translation are linked, as I said, and the way this is done is by entering the translation that is prepared by the editors wherever it is most appropriate within the original language, and then simply rearranging the word order in the target language, which is English, into something that is more like a natural English. But I should add here that this is not a normal kind of popular translation. This is a particular style of scholarly translation, which is really what enables us to do this. And then the main addition made by the actual dictionary project is to link the tokens of the underlying corpus to the lemmas in the dictionary. And basically, once you've got this structure in place and you've made these links, the dictionary writes itself, in the sense that for any given head word, you can collect all of the citations, all of the instances of the word from the corpus, and see the translation in the context of the target language, as well as in the context of the original language. But there are just a couple of issues here. It requires some forward planning when the corpus is designed, and this was fortunately something that was thought about early on. It requires a particular model, and in particular, the underlying translation isn't what you would normally expect, but it is something that is fairly standard among even scholarly translations published in popular series such as Penguin and so on. But I'll leave it there, even though I've got a couple of other points. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. All right. Next is Anna. You need to turn on your sound.
Hi, Toma, and hi,
Anna. Fancy seeing you here.
Okay, me too. So I'm Ana Salgado, I'm a lexicographer, and I'm also finished my PhD thesis concerning the inclusion of terms in language dictionaries. I'm here to give a few words about the joint paper where we present our recent funded Portuguese lexicographic project, MORDigital. We will work on Dicionário da Língua Portuguesa of António de Moraes Silva, a renowned 18th century Portuguese lexicographer. And the first edition was published in 1785. Moraes editions represent a great legacy since it marks the beginning of monolingual Portuguese dictionaries. And the main goal of our project is to encode the first 3 editions of Moraes. And our pre-record presentation describes the project and the methodology proposed, which is based on a consistent linguistic analysis. And the output will be made available in a dedicated platform. Well, concerning the project will be funded over the next 3 years. We are just starting now, and now just a few words concerning the biggest challenge. So the experiments for correcting and tagging this historical lexicographic work that have been scanned and digitized using OCR, we will test the Graphic dictionaries, a machine learning system to convert PDF into the TI XML format and to structure the content of the dictionary. And the analysis of all components that comprise the dictionary macro and microstructure. And we will try to describe different levels of linguistic knowledge. And we also aim to include the ontologies, knowing that we are working with a lexicographic resource that will contain many inconsistencies, since it is an historical project. And I also can mention the difficulty of finding terms without domain labels. There are some labels, but not the usually today's domains labels. And the problem concerning what we generally call definition, or I can mention the semantic changes through time, the evolution of concepts. We will look to this. And we will try also to combine semasiological and onomasiological approaches. So we will follow best practice concerning eLex 0, LMF, and also OntoLex. So I remain available for any questions you may have. As I said before, we are just starting and we are very motivated for this. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Anna. Okay, off we go. Ligeia, I'm so sorry, I'm probably not pronouncing your name right, so I hope you will correct me before you start.
Ligeia.
Ligeia, okay, welcome. Do you have a slide, or are you just speaking?
No.
Okay. Then
all right,
off you go.
I took very seriously the time constraint, so probably I will be less than 3 minutes. I would imagine that if you're interested, you can read the paper, watch the pre-recordings, you have plenty of options. So just to summarize very briefly, I presented the automation and post-editing workflows of 2 historical dictionaries I worked on, I still work on actually. One is a diachronic lexicon of Tibetan verbalency, and the other one is a dictionary and thesaurus of Buddhist Sanskrit. Now, both resources rely very heavily on data visualization, and my main contribution lies in highlighting the advantages of focusing our post-editing practices on data visualizations instead of text. Now, my main challenge has been to strike a balance between automation and interpretation. Now, obviously, we need automation in order to speed up our work, but it's also very important that we do justice to the interpretable nature of the historical material we use, especially with Sanskrit, where there is a lot of uncertainty surrounding the sources. Now, to do that, I took inspiration from data journalism practices, because data journalists obviously do some kind of quantitative analysis and also data visualization of the information they have, but all the information is ultimately interpretable, and that's why we have some investigative and commentary in journalism. So for the Buddhist Sanskrit dictionary only, I have decided to combine a fully human authored narrative that is rather complex and explains our interpretation of the data, with some post-edited data visualization, which again highlight our interpretation of data, with some fully automated interactive data visualization that enable the user to explore the semantically annotated corpus that we have and reach their own independent conclusion and follow the line of inquiry if they so wish. So that's it. I will, if there are some questions that require me to share my screen and show the actual resources, I will, but otherwise I leave it to you.
Thanks a lot, Ligeia. All right, and we have one more mini presentation from Ben.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, and now we can see you too.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here. And let me share my screen. Okay, can you guys, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So our paper is about a workflow that we developed to digitize lexical resources for low resource languages. And the project is a collaboration between me as an independent researcher and my colleagues at the De La Salle University in the Philippines, namely Joel Ilaw, who is also joining me, Ethel Ong, Rochelle Lucas, and Melvin Habar. So just a quick background. The Philippines is one of the most diverse linguistically countries in the world. It has 187 languages spoken by over 100 million people, of which 175 are indigenous. But sadly, many are becoming endangered because of modernization. And so the Hanuno-Mangyans are one of the indigenous tribes. About 10,000 of them live in the remote mountain areas of the Mindoro Island in the Philippines. They have their own native writing system, but mainly they're used for inscribing poems in bamboos, as you can see in that picture. For day-to-day written communication, they use our Roman letters. And so in an effort to help document the Hanuno language, we embarked on a project to retro-digitize the Hanuno English dictionary that was authored by the late Harold Conklin in 1953. And so the idea is we want to use this dictionary to augment an earlier e-dictionary project, which my colleagues completed in 2020. And they compiled that using they basically compiled a 1,000 word modern Hanuno vocabulary using a rapid word collection technique. The Hanuno dictionary itself, it uses special characters such as the eng symbol, the glottal stop, and vowels with diacritical marks. And so we needed to customize the OCR to recognize these special characters. Our key contribution is in developing a retro digitization workflow that's really suitable for low resource languages. And so while we follow the Daria Teach high-level workflow as shown below, we develop techniques to accommodate low resource languages, which are often, they have few lexical resources available, no pre-built OCR language support, and limited funding. And so I want to share 3 techniques that we found like really effective. The first one is whenever possible, use a pre-trained OCR language.
We are running out of time. So if you can wrap it up quickly, please.
Okay, sure. So using pre-trained language models makes training much faster with less data. Using it, basically taking imperfect transition quality, because it's cheaper to rely on proofreaders than your IT or AI staff. And then we also use this page view mode where it makes it easy to look at the original source, compare that with the page view, and make the edits. So I think there's more details in our paper. Happy to answer more questions later. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. All right, well, we can now open the floor to questions, and I will start. I think we should try to ask first some specific questions to our contributors, and if we have time, we can also ask broader cross-panel questions. Can I ask all the participants to turn on their videos so that I can actually see them? And
the system says the host has stopped my video. I cannot start it.
Who was this? Sorry.
I'm David, and I'm not able to turn on my video. Some host has stopped it.
Dear hosts, be nice to David, please. Let him share his video.
It's the same with me. Katja.
And with Katja, please.
And also me. I cannot share my video.
Whose voice was that? Sorry.
Sorry, I'm Joel Ilao, and I cannot share my video.
Joel. Okay, I will start. Please, if you need to share your video, please put it in the chat so that the organizers can see it, okay? That would be more efficient. All right, David, I'd like to start with you. I put the question in the chat. So
yes.
Why use Wikimedia platforms?
Yes.
And I think, you know, some of us who come from the academic landscape may not even know what it's good for. So if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you. I think I can share my screen. You're seeing my screen now. Yeah, thanks for this question. Actually, Basque is a small language. Now we have 1 million speakers. And the fact that the El dictionary publisher, which is one of the 2 big dictionary publishers here, has shared more than 30,000 dictionary census on Wikidata, has led to the kick-off effect. Yeah, now the community engages in adding links to Wikidata, which ultimately leads to the describing Wikipedia article, synonyms, and yeah, these are the sentences from Eluia, which is very nice. And then forms. Now in Basque we have lots of forms. It's agglutinative. So now you have we have very rich lexical resource here on Wikidata. And without this initial content, I think this wouldn't have happened. No, if Basque with Wikipedia, it was the same. They loaded up a printed encyclopedia. And then people started to add more content. No, so this is it. You get the takeoff effect, and it's a straightforward way to reuse the data. No, you can extract all this with Sparkle queries, link to it, whatever. And for Eluia, this is no loss because they actually create more traffic to their site. Now, if I click on this, I go directly to their site. No. So as they are the first to share their content, they got more traffic. So it is a win-win situation, I think. In German, you already have Duden IDs, and in English, you have OED IDs, which is kind of the same, no? So I don't think it is 2 separated worlds. It's already coming together, and it's a kind of who comes first becomes standard. So
right. No, I think it's very interesting, and it's actually something that has been mentioned in this conference already, because the Istok was telling us the other day, it's not that we need to start crowdsourcing, it's already there. But the lovely thing about the Wikipedia or Wikimedia example is that it comes not only with the community, but it actually comes with the technical infrastructure that is relatively easy to use, but stable enough to provide additional value to academic dictionary projects. So I think this is a great thing to explore for all of us in how much we can align with Wikidata. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, next question will be for Michal. You briefly responded, but I'm not sure everybody read. So you have an old dictionary that's unfinished, you want to finish it, if you figure out how to deal with the copyright holders. How are you going to keep, you will have two methodologies, one based on index cards, one based on the corpus. How will you bring them together? Will you correct mistakes? How will you be clear about who did what in that dictionary?
Yes, we need to, thanks. We need to revise all these already finished or completed entries, because they're old, and I bet that contrasting with corpus data, they will be needed to be revised. That's for sure. And I've already been talking about those suspicious or suspicion that from the side of copyright holders that we want to appropriate Mudra's work. Well, we definitely do not want to do that. We want to just to finish the whole project. That's the whole story. But how to exactly do that, we haven't decided yet.
Maybe if I may,
yes.
maybe one first step could be to digitalize and publish the index cards Mudra made, similarly as there are index cards of other historical dictionaries on the web. For example, a project of our institute is Goraz, an Old Church Slavonic dictionary, and there you can view the index cards, and then another step could be to publish the finished work, and then in another version the revised dictionary. But this is not decided yet at the moment. But thank you for all the inspiring examples of finished electronic dictionaries. I found a lot of ideas here on the contrast. Thank you for that.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, some of the nerds among us really like index cards and excerpts, even though they are totally old-fashioned and corpus linguists think they're ridiculous, but they do have their value. And there's several, as you mentioned, there's several examples of old index cards being digitized and then used as a one of the resources linked to the dictionary. So I hope you progress with that. Excellent. All right, Tarrin, that was also really interesting what you did with this project, and even though your demonstration was very short, it really clarified it for me how the alignment and translation work. But it's relatively easy to do with languages that are similar, which is your case. I mean, similar, broadly speaking, Germanic. Can we use the same model for any historical dictionary and any language?
I think I've been reflecting a bit on this, and I think the underlying challenge isn't the relationship between the source and target languages, because But I think it's the style of translation. And there is a particular style of translation which isn't just found in Old Norse, but you find also in a certain sort of Latin translation, for example, where the translator does try to kind of include every word from the source language into the target translation. And it requires the reader to get used to a different style, but I think we all know it. I mean, there are sort of expressions that you read in translations of Latin, for example, that you never encounter in normal English, but we're kind of used to that. And if we have that as the starting point, then I think this system works quite well. Of course, there are words that that have no equivalent in the target language, but these are always going to be a little bit more of a challenge for a lexicographer anyway. And of course, the other thing that that's only dealt with in a very formal way in my dictionary is larger structures that include more than one word. I have a system for dealing with a particular kind of formal nominal periphrasis that is found throughout. It encompasses a large amount of the lexicon, and that could be extended for more complex expressions than simple word-to-word correspondence, which is not something that we can expect in a translation process.
Right. You do have a limited project, so of course it's clear that you can't do everything at once, but multi-word expressions would certainly be an area to explore. And I could imagine that it would be just a different layer, you know, that you could have one layer for a more or less word-to-word translations, and then a layer for spans that would kind of catch. And with this interesting kind of interface that you built, I think that would be fairly easy for the editor to use. So I'm looking forward to finding out more about it in the future. If
you look in the website, you can see there are both compounds are included there, which are not really more like, I mean, it's a different structure, but and also these periphrases that are called kennings. We just assume the reader knows what that means, but that's where it's been implemented in that.
I didn't know. so, all right, thanks. There was a question for Anna about the Brazilian, which you responded to, about the previous digitization effort in Brazil. Then I have a question for Anna. You mentioned that in this project you will be combining different approaches in terms of the organization, you know, semasiological and normasiological, and that you'll be looking at terms and this and that. And the same way that I said Wikimedia sometimes seem to be on a different planet, I think lexicographers and terminologists, well, some of my best friends are terminologists, we don't always work together. What can we learn from each other? Why do we need to work together? And especially in the context of historical lexicography.
So thanks, Toma, for the question. So it's true, sometimes lexicography and terminology seems to be coming from different planets. Lexicographers and terminologists deal with the same problems, but we have different theoretical and methodological assumptions. However, I strongly believe that we can complement each other. In my point of view, terminological methods helps lexicographers in the organization and description of the lexicographic articles. In terminology, we lead with the knowledge organization. So the organization of data assuming terminological assumptions and its respective harmonization, it is important to say the harmonization of the data will facilitate the study and analysis of the language in diachronic terms also. So for the case of the Morais dictions, is very important for the Portuguese language. And I also can mention that the terminological approach is very important for lexicographers, not only for the organization of lexical data and to build the ontologies, but also when we look to the evolution of the concepts. So I don't know if it's too early to say, but I think we with this project we will try to look to the evolution of the concepts through time and through society, and we can probably build, for example, I'm always thinking about the domain labels and the organization of the knowledge. But I think when we look to the domains that Moraes used in the 18th century, we can compare to nowadays. And so I think we can make some assumptions then.
Thank you very much. I have to come out, not only am I part of the project, but Anna and I share an obsession with domain labels. So I'm glad you mentioned it, because I think it's really, with historical dictionaries and any dictionaries, there's, we treat domain labels as some kind of objective pieces of knowledge, but there's very little work on aligning domain labels across dictionaries. And what does it mean that something is a medical term in the 18th century Portuguese as opposed to what it means today, etc. So I think those are really wonderful things to explore. All right, Ligeia, I really, really enjoyed your full paper and this idea that you very practically can do some things automatically, and then you need to select stuff that you, what you call lexical portraits, to do more human work on. But can you tell us a bit more how you decide what word is difficult enough or interesting enough to deserve human attention? Sound, please.
Sorry. So since this dictionary is aimed specifically at translators of Buddhist texts, and there are a number of issues with translations, which where our colleague here said scholarly translation, well, that's very, very charitable. In Buddhist studies, we have a term which is Buddhist hybrid English, which is a joke on Buddhist, on hybrid Sanskrit. Because people are so close to the original, try to be so close to the original text that the final translation is almost unreadable if you don't know Sanskrit. So there are some issues with translations, and therefore we try to highlight the issues and to help translators overcome them. So there are three main criteria at the moment. But let me also say that this is really work in progress. So maybe in 2 years' time it's going to be completely different. But at the moment, the criteria are that a word is either as very close synonyms. So we try to compare the words so that the translator can choose a rendition for each of them and have at least make an informed choice. Another one is that the words are extremely polysemic, and we try to tease out the relationship between the senses, because there is a lot of problems with lexical cohesion in translation. So we try to help the translator and gauge when they should use a different rendition in English, and when is it safe to use the same lexical translation over the text. And then finally, there is a tendency in Buddhist studies to over-terminologize words in the Buddhist vocabulary. So we also want to portray especially words that have a common general language sense and a derived terminological application. And this is the one example we have currently online, is one of these, is famous as a technical term, but it actually has a lot of general language applications, and we try to explain and show this double usage.
Great, wonderful, thank you very much. That makes perfect sense to me, even though I'm not anywhere near Sanskrit studies, but it makes perfect sense. Very good. And Ben, I would now, what was really, first of all, I was delighted that you found use of the Daria Teach course on retro digitization, and this is the first time I hear it's been used in this context of a low resource language, so that's delightful for me. But I'd like to hear a bit more about the differences, because what you are doing is you are retro digitizing a dictionary from 1953, but you're also doing ethnographic work where you are you mentioned in the longer version your rapid collection of words and things like that. So what can you tell us about the changes, and is the 1953 dictionary really still worth it? or should you have just stuck with collecting words yourselves?
Right. Great, Toma. That's a great question. So I think it's true. It's the dictionary is 70 years old, so there are parts of it that are outdated. But having said that, a casual review of the vocabulary show that there's core words that carry are stable over time. So words like abril for April or kalawit for spear, same sense in the two dictionaries. We did see variations in spelling and some evidence of semantic shift, but I'm not a linguist. I'm going to leave it to my colleagues to do a more rigorous and informed analysis in future.
Cool, thanks. But I think that itself will be interesting, right? To compare and that would be yet another argument why we should retro-digitize all the dictionaries to see what has changed since. We have now run out of time, so we won't be able to do any kind of grand questions about the future of our field. But I think this has been an incredibly rich session that has shown to those who have not yet drank the historical Kool-Aid about how wonderful these projects are and how much important stuff there is in historical lexicography. So thank you once again to all the panelists, and happy conferencing, everybody. See you soon.